My dad used my baby shower savings to buy my sister a car. She actually needs it, you'll be fine, he said. I just nodded, packed my things and left without a word. This morning, I woke up to 27 missed calls and a single text from him. You didn't have to do that to the house. I lived with my husband in my parents' house and for a long time, I never thought I had any reason not to trust them. My dad would joke about how he couldn't wait to be a grandpa, how he'd help build the crib himself, how we were lucky to have family support. My mom acted like she was planning the baby shower with me, always flipping through Pinterest and throwing out theme ideas. We were saving every cent we could. I was 7 months pregnant, still working part-time remotely, and my husband was doing double shifts just to keep us afloat. The plan was simple. We'd live there a little longer until after the baby was born. We had our own entrance, our own small kitchen downstairs. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. We opened a savings account for the baby shower, gender reveal, and some essentials. My dad helped us open it, added his name just in case we needed help with paperwork later. I didn't think twice. Then one afternoon I came home and saw Kelsey in the driveway, jumping up and down next to a brand new white Corolla with her name on a temporary license plate taped to the window. My stomach dropped. She had her phone out, taking selfies with the car. My mom was standing next to her, smiling like this was the proudest moment of her life. My dad came around from the garage, beaming like he just pulled off a miracle. I didn't understand until we got inside and he told me straight out. He said he used the money from the account. The account. Our baby shower savings. Every dollar. Gone. He actually needs it. You'll be fine. That's what he said. Like I was being selfish. Like a 16-year-old's car was more important than a first-time mother preparing to bring a baby into the world. I didn't scream. I didn't ask him how he thought this was okay. I just went upstairs, closed the door and sat in silence for a while. Then I packed a suitcase, grabbed every important document, took down the envelope of saved cash we had tucked in the closet, logged into the savings account, transferred what little was left. Maybe he didn't know I had moved some of it earlier, into a new account under my name only. I deleted everything that could link him to it. Before we left, I opened the drawer in the kitchen where he kept his spare keys and checkbooks and dumped the entire thing in a trash bag. The checkbooks? I shredded them one by one and flushed them. It felt petty. It felt right. My husband picked me up without asking a single question. We drove to the cheapest apartment we could find that didn't look like it would collapse in a storm. It smelled like dust and old food and the blinds were broken, but I remember that first night like it was a fresh breath of air. We didn't even have a bed, just a blanket on the floor and a half-eaten takeout box. We were broke, angry and exhausted, but we were finally in control. The next morning I woke up to 27 missed calls from my dad. Nothing from my mom. No one asked if I was okay, if I needed anything, if the baby was fine. Just one text from him. You didn't have to do that to the house. He didn't say what he meant exactly. Maybe it was about the drawer. Maybe he was talking about the missing documents. Maybe he tried to get into the account again and realized it was locked. I didn't reply. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever trust one had in him was already gone. For a while after we left, it felt like we could finally breathe. The apartment was small, noisy, and the heater smelled like burnt dust every time it kicked on, but it was ours. My husband found more work, and I started making some side income selling custom baby shower decorations online. We had nothing fancy. A second-hand couch, a mattress on the floor, and a wobbly kitchen table we pulled from someone's curb. But we were finally making our own decisions. We thought we'd cut ourselves loose. We thought we'd finally be left alone. Then the visit started. At first it was just my dad. I saw his truck from the window while I was folding laundry. He stood outside like he didn't just completely betray us, like nothing had happened. He knocked once. Then again. Then tried calling. I let it ring. The next time he brought my mom. They knocked for 10 straight minutes like they were trying to wait us out. We stayed quiet. My husband sat on the floor with his hand on my belly. The baby kicked hard. After that, it was constant. Texts, voicemails, unexpected visits. They would drive out 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit in the hallway. The texts were guilt trips pretending to be concerned. You just want to talk. You're making this harder than it has to be. You know we love you. They never once mentioned the car. Or the money. Or even asked how the baby was doing. The notes they slipped under the door were long and emotional, filled with phrases like, "You're breaking this family apart," and "This isn't how we raised you." Then it turned into something else. One afternoon we accidentally opened the door expecting a grocery delivery and there they were. My dad pushed in like we still lived in his house. He looked around the apartment like he was inspecting damage. My mom walked over to the kitchen and opened the fridge without asking. She asked what vitamins I was taking. My dad said the neighborhood didn't seem safe and asked if we had thought about moving back. I told them they had 5 minutes and then I wanted them gone. They acted like I was the one being rude. Like I was the one who'd taken something that wasn't mine. After they left, we installed a new chain on the door. That same night, I blocked both their numbers. Kelsey kept posting photos with the car. She named it Luna. Her captions were always something like, "Finally free. My new baby smiling face with heart eyes. Independence looks good on me." And just like that, my parents switched gears. Kelsey said she needed the car for mental independence. And suddenly that was their favorite excuse. My dad started telling people it was an investment in her future. My mom started using words like responsibility and growth. Meanwhile, they started showing up at our apartment more often. Always uninvited, always unannounced. One time I opened the blinds and saw them just sitting in their car outside. They didn't come up. They just sat there for nearly an hour. Watching. Waiting. When we stopped answering the door completely, they started leaving little things behind. A plastic bag with vitamins. A pack of baby wipes. One day they left a used baby monitor from the early 2000s. The kind with the long antenna. My husband threw it in the trash before I even touched it. Then they crossed the line. I came home from a doctor's appointment to find my dad talking to our landlord. Asking about the lease, about safety codes, about who was allowed to stay on the property. The landlord looked confused. I just stood there until they both noticed me. My dad smiled like we'd bumped into each other on accident. The landlord asked if everything was okay. I told him it wasn't. That night I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, one hand on my belly, the other gripping my phone. I thought we were safe. That leaving the house meant they'd have no hold on us anymore. I was wrong. They didn't want to fix things. They wanted control back. After the landlord incident, something changed. It wasn't just about visits anymore. They were escalating. Calling from different numbers, sending messages through old family friends, even asking my aunt to check in on us. It became a full campaign. And for what? Because we took back our own money and left? One afternoon, my mom showed up with a casserole dish and a list of suggestions for how we should be spending our budget. She waited outside for almost half an hour, then left it on our doorstep along with a handwritten note about how a child needs the whole family. I didn't touch the food. I threw the note in the trash. She came back the next day asking why we hadn't said thank you. My husband finally told them not to come back. He said it calmly right to their faces. They ignored him. My dad said we were just being hormonal and stubborn, and that soon we'd realize we couldn't do this without them. The irony was disgusting. They acted like we had cut them off out of nowhere. Like we were being cruel. But every time they spoke to us, it was never about the baby or how I was feeling or what we might need. It was all about them. How embarrassed they were. How hurt they were. How they only did what was necessary for Kelsey. Kelsey, of course, was thriving. Posting videos of her driving around with her friends, stopping for iced coffee after school, blasting music in the driveway while she filmed little dances for TikTok. She even posted a glow-up video with before and after clips of getting the car, as if it had transformed her into some evolved version of herself. And through all of this, my parents kept coming, pushing, showing up and giving unsolicited advice. Once they dropped off a bag of newborn clothes that still had the clearance tags on, and my mom made a comment about how I probably wouldn't be able to afford the nicer brands right now. My dad started giving us budgeting tips. Tried to tell my husband how to handle utility bills, even though we were never late on a single one. They weren't helping. They were watching, monitoring, judging everything we did. It got to the point where I started keeping the blinds closed all the time. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want them to know if we were home or not. I felt like I had to live in hiding, and all while I was growing a human inside me. The pressure built slowly, like a storm hanging overhead that just wouldn't break. I started snapping more often, crying at night. I hated that they still had this kind of power over me, that even from a distance they could still make me feel like I was a child again, helpless, voiceless, small. My husband sat me down one evening and said if I wanted to move cities, he'd start looking the next day. But the lease was new. My doctor was local. My job was still remote but tied to state licensing. Moving felt like too much, too fast. I told him I could handle it. That was my mistake, because the next week they came inside again. I'd left the door unlocked for 5 minutes while taking groceries up and they timed it perfectly. My mom stepped right in with a plastic bag and started unloading things onto the counter. Diapers, pacifiers, some canned food. My dad followed behind her, trying to smile like this was some sort of visit between close relatives. My husband wasn't home. She started asking questions again. About the birth plan. If we were really keeping the name we'd picked. She commented that the living room looked messy and asked if I'd be able to keep the place clean with a newborn. That was when something in me cracked. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at her until she finally got quiet. Then I told them both, no more visits. No more gifts. No more anything. We didn't need their help and we weren't interested in their version of support. My dad started to say something and I cut him off. They left. But this time I knew they wouldn't let it end like that. And I also knew that the next time they crossed the line, I wouldn't hold back. After that last conversation, the silence felt unnatural. Not peaceful, just eerie. Like when the power goes out and everything sounds off. No calls. No surprise visits. No notes under the door. It felt like the eye of a storm, and I knew better than to think it was over. Then Kelsey posted a story. A short video, but dramatic as hell. She was sitting in the car we bought. No shame about it. Crying into the camera with sad music in the background. Her face was all tears and mascara, and the caption read, "I miss my sister. I don't know why she hates me. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to go to school safely, broken heart." She tagged me. Publicly. Comments poured in. Her friends were saying, "You didn't do anything wrong. Some people are just bitter. She'll come around." Even a couple of our distant cousins jumped in, talking about forgiveness and how Monica's always been sensitive. My aunt called me the next day, all sugar and guilt. "You're going to have a baby soon. Don't you want your family around you?" I hung up without answering. Then came the worst of it. I was sitting in my OBGYN's waiting room, reading over my birth plan, when I heard my name. I looked up. There they were. My parents. Standing at the front desk like they'd been invited. My mom smiled like this was a surprise reunion. My dad gave me that fake, proud dad grin he used to give when he'd forget my birthday and pretend it was part of some bigger plan. I stood up and walked straight down the hallway without saying a word. The receptionist was confused. I didn't explain. I just asked to be taken in early. Thankfully, the nurse saw something in my face and didn't ask any questions. When I got home, I locked the door, turned off my phone, and just sat in silence. I couldn't even cry. I felt hollow. I thought I'd cut them off, made myself clear, but showing up at a doctor's appointment? That was stalking. It was control disguised as concern. And I was done. So I called them. One final time. My mom picked up. On speaker. Like they were waiting for me to break. I said they were no longer welcome in my life. Not at my home, not at my appointments, not at the hospital, not even in my inbox. I said I didn't want advice, gifts, surprises, or their presence. I said the only way back was a full apology for what they did and the damage they caused. Not just the money. Everything. There was a long pause. Then my dad said it. "You don't mean that." I hung up. That night they came back. Banging on the door like nothing had happened. They stood outside yelling things like, "We're just trying to help. And you can't shut us out forever." My husband told them through the door to leave or we'd call the police. Then my mom shouted something I'll never forget. "If something happens to that baby, you'll regret cutting off the only people who could have helped you." I opened the door just enough to slide the chain in place and looked at them through the gap. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the couch, shaking. When my husband got home, he barely blinked. He opened our family group chat, the one they used to send good morning quotes and fake cheerful updates, and wrote, "From this moment forward, if either of you contact us again in any way, we will file a restraining order. This is not a threat. It's a promise." Then he left the group. I did the same. That was it. The silence that followed was different this time. Heavier but final. No calls. No emails. No strange cars in the parking lot. It was like someone finally cut the cord and let the whole situation bleed out. We started sleeping better. I began organizing the baby's things in peace. The apartment felt safe again. We stopped tiptoeing around, stopped checking the peephole every 10 minutes. The calm felt real for the first time. Until 2 weeks later. I was in the kitchen unpacking groceries when there was a soft knock at the door. I didn't expect anyone. We hadn't ordered food. I froze. Checked the peephole. It was Kelsey. Not dressed up. No car keys. No phone in her hand. Just her standing there in a hoodie holding a reusable grocery bag that looked half empty. She didn't look like someone trying to get views. She looked exhausted. I opened the door halfway, not saying anything. She stood there for a second, then said she hadn't told them she was coming. And she wanted to talk. Alone. I let her in even though every part of me hesitated. Not because I suddenly trusted her, but because I needed to know why she was there, standing alone without the car, without our parents, without even her phone in hand, like she wasn't trying to document this for some performance. She stepped inside like the place was fragile. Her eyes were puffy. She held a grocery bag like it was a peace offering. I didn't offer her a seat or anything to drink. I didn't speak. I just waited. He started talking. He said she was sorry. Quietly. Awkwardly. Not some big dramatic moment, just the kind that felt real. She said she didn't know at first that the money came from us. That mom and dad made it sound like we'd offered it up, or didn't really need it anymore. They told her I wasn't handling the pregnancy well, that I was emotional, overwhelmed, and that a party was too much for me anyway. She said she believed them because she wanted to. because it was easier to take the car and pretend it was a gift, not a theft. Then things started spiraling. The posts, the comments, the attention. Everyone telling her she was the innocent one, the little sister caught in the middle. She said she liked being the one they protected for once. But then after we moved out and everything got quiet, the guilt didn't. She told me how mom and dad talked about us behind closed doors. How they said they were just waiting for us to fail. That we'd be crawling back, once the baby came. That we were being ungrateful and selfish for choosing distance over family. She said she didn't want to be part of that anymore. Then she pulled out what she'd brought. A bag of baby wipes, a little gray stuffed elephant, and a folded note written in her handwriting. I didn't read it yet. I just stared at her. She looked different. Like someone who had seen a little too much too fast. I asked her if they knew she was here. She shook her head and said if they found out she'd never hear the end of it. She stayed for about an hour. No pressure. No asking to make things right. She didn't even try to explain everything, she just sat with me. Talked about school. About how weird things were at home now. About how quiet it had gotten since I left. How our parents seemed more invested in controlling the story than fixing the damage. Before she left, she asked if she could come by again. Not as the sister who took something, but maybe, slowly, as the sister who was trying to give something back. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. But 2 weeks later the baby came. Labor was long, exhausting but quiet. No hospital drama. No hovering family. Just my husband and me. And when our son was born, healthy, screaming, perfect, it felt like a reset. Like the beginning of a life we were finally in charge of. No text from my mom. No phone call from my dad. Not even a fake congratulations post. But Kelsey came. She brought food she made herself. Barely edible, but she tried. She washed dishes, folded tiny clothes, and stayed up late with me while I cried through the first night. She didn't talk about our parents. Didn't ask for updates. She was just there. Every visit after that was the same. Quiet. Helpful. Normal. She stopped posting selfies with the car. Stopped tagging me in sad girl videos. She started bringing used baby books, hand-me-down toys from neighbors, things I would never have asked for but actually needed. Then one evening she brought something unexpected. An old photo album. Inside were pictures I hadn't seen in years. Me holding her as a baby. Me brushing her hair. Helping her get dressed for Halloween. Notes I'd written her when she was in middle school. She said, "I forgot who you were for a while. I think I forgot who I was too." And I knew she meant it. She didn't say it, but I could tell she was growing up. She was seeing our parents the way I had for years. She started asking harder questions. Started pushing back. Calling out the little lies. Correcting their twisted version of what happened. I never asked her to do any of that. I never wanted her caught in the middle. But she chose it. For the first time it felt like she wasn't doing it for attention. She was doing it for me. For the baby. For herself. And then, on the morning we were being discharged from the hospital, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it thinking it was Kelsey again. It was. But she wasn't alone. Standing behind her for the first time in weeks were my parents. They didn't look angry. They looked scared. And Kelsey? She just looked at me and said they have something to say. I stood in the doorway with my baby in my arms, blinking at the scene like I was seeing things. My parents standing behind Kelsey like school kids caught sneaking out. No yelling, no guilt tripping, no, "You need to forgive us." Just standing there. So, certain. Kelsey looked tired, but not in the way she used to, not drained from drama or attention seeking. This was a kind of exhaustion that comes from being the one who carries everyone else's damage. She glanced at me and said calmly, almost like she was giving them a nudge, "They have something to say." I didn't move. My mom opened her mouth first, then shut it. Her hands were shaking slightly. My dad stepped forward instead, holding a drooping bouquet of grocery store flowers. He looked at me, not the baby, and said, "I was wrong. That's it." 3 words. But the weight of them hit differently coming from a man who spent my whole life refusing to admit fault. He didn't pad it with excuses. He didn't say he did what he thought was best. He didn't blame Kelsey or circumstances, or anything else. He just said it again, quieter this time. "I was wrong." Then my mom looked at me, and for once, there was no performance in her eyes. No pity. No pride. Just guilt. Real guilt. He said she was sorry too. Not just for the money or the car or the surprise visits, but for all of it. The manipulation. The pressure. The way they assumed they could make decisions for my life like I was still 16 and sneaking in past curfew. She said something I never expected to hear from her. "We didn't think you'd make it on your own. But you did. And you did it better than we ever could have." That stopped me. Because I had made it. We were in a tiny apartment with cheap furniture and hand-me-down everything, but it was ours. I'd given birth without their help. I'd held it together. And I was holding this perfect tiny boy in my arms. and he had no idea how much chaos came before him. Then my mom pulled something from her bag. A folded envelope. She handed it to me, careful not to touch the baby or even brush my shoulder. Inside was a printed bank receipt. A wire transfer. Into a new account with only my name on it. They sold the car. They didn't get back everything, I knew that. But it wasn't about the money anymore. Not really. It was about what they were willing to give up to show they meant it. And that was something. Kelsey spoke last. He said she asked them to come. That she told them they couldn't keep pretending they were right. That if they wanted to be part of my son's life, they had to come to me on their knees, not with lectures. That it wasn't enough to feel sorry, they had to act sorry. She said it took weeks to get through to them. And that if I wasn't ready to let them in, she'd understand. But she thought I should at least hear it. Because maybe they weren't capable of being different people. But maybe, just maybe, they were learning how to try. I didn't invite them in. I didn't forgive them, not all at once. But I didn't shut the door either. They left without protest. No tears. No drama. Just a quiet thank you from my mom and a long look from my dad like he wanted to say something else but knew better. Over the next few days nothing happened. They didn't follow up. They didn't send long texts. They didn't show up with casseroles or backhanded advice. They stayed quiet. Kelsey came by more often. Not just for the baby but for me. She started folding laundry without asking. She scrubbed the dishes before I noticed they were dirty. She stopped wearing that defensiveness she used to carry like a shield. And she started being the sister I remembered from before all this. Before the lies in the car and the betrayal. Then one afternoon my mom sent a text. Just one. If there's ever a time you want us to see the baby, we'll wait for the invitation. No pressure. We're proud of you. No emojis. No guilt. Just words I never thought would come from her. Weeks passed. Then months. My baby started smiling. Then giggling. The apartment still smelled like formula and takeout, but it finally felt like home. My husband started calling Kelsey Aunt Kay without sarcasm. She teared up the first time he said it. Eventually I let my parents come by. Once. They sat on the edge of the couch like visitors in a waiting room. They didn't ask to hold the baby. They just looked. Quietly. My dad's hands were clenched the whole time, like he was trying not to say the wrong thing. They stayed 20 minutes. Then left. And for the first time I didn't feel like they were here to reclaim something that didn't belong to them. They were here because they finally understood. This wasn't their house. This wasn't their life. This wasn't their baby. It was mine. And they were just lucky to be allowed back in.